Imagine standing at the edge of a forgotten world. The wind carries whispers from a time when our ancestors first gazed at the stars and wondered about their place in the cosmos. A time when early humans may have possessed knowledge that has been lost to the erosion of millennia. 250,000 years ago, long before the first cities rose from the dust, long before writing systems captured human thought, our ancestors walked this earth. Not as the primitive, grunting caricatures often portrayed in popular culture, but perhaps as beings with complex inner lives we've barely begun to comprehend. The standard narrative tells us they were simple, focused only on survival, limited in their cognitive capabilities. But what if this narrative is incomplete? What if we've been underestimating the depths of their intelligence, their capacity for abstract thought, their ability to communicate? Tonight we embark on a journey through the mists of deep time. We'll examine controversial evidence suggesting our ancestors possessed sophisticated knowledge systems, proto-language capabilities, and symbolic thinking far earlier than conventional wisdom allows. This is not merely an academic question. It strikes at the heart of what it means to be human. If we've misunderstood our distant forebears, we may have fundamentally misunderstood ourselves, our cognitive evolution, our relationship with knowledge, our place in the long arc of human consciousness. The artifacts lie scattered across continents, enigmatic stone tools showing unexpected precision, ochre pieces bearing strange, deliberate markings, cave paintings that hint at astronomical knowledge, each piece a fragment of a puzzle that challenges our understanding of cognitive emergence. Mainstream archaeology has long maintained that complex symbolic thought, language, and abstract reasoning emerged relatively recently, perhaps 50,000 years ago during what's called the cognitive revolution. But a growing body of evidence suggests we may need to push this timeline back, far back. By the way, what brought you to this exploration of ancient human cognition? I'm curious what aspects of our earliest ancestors fascinate you most. The questions we're about to explore have captivated researchers for generations, yet definitive answers remain elusive. Consider the implications if we've been wrong. If human cognitive sophistication emerged not 50,000 years ago, but 100,000, 200,000, or even 250,000 years in the past, it would fundamentally alter our understanding of ourselves, our capabilities, our potential, our very nature. The journey ahead requires us to shed our preconceptions, to approach the evidence with fresh eyes, to consider possibilities that may seem outlandish at first glance, but might contain kernels of profound truth about our origins. We must acknowledge the limitations we face. Time has erased much of the evidence. What remains is fragmentary, often ambiguous, and subject to multiple interpretations. The further back we peer, the more difficult our task becomes. Yet there are whispers from the past if we know how to listen. Traces of intelligence that have survived the crushing weight of time. Evidence of minds capable of abstract thought, symbolic representation, and perhaps even the transmission of knowledge across generations. Some of what we'll explore remains contentious within the scientific community. That's the nature of pushing boundaries. But we'll approach each claim with analytical rigor, distinguishing between established fact, reasonable inference, and more speculative possibilities. This is not about sensationalizing the past or making claims that outstrip the evidence. It's about allowing ourselves to consider the full range of human cognitive potential throughout our evolutionary history, and following the evidence wherever it leads. Tonight, we'll examine archaeological findings that challenge conventional timelines. We'll explore cognitive theories about the emergence of language and symbolic thought. We'll consider what ancient artifacts might reveal about the minds that created them. We'll journey to remote caves in Africa, where some of the earliest evidence of symbolic behavior has been discovered. We'll visit ancient sites across Europe and Asia, where unexpected findings have forced researchers to reconsider long-standing assumptions. We'll hear from archaeologists, anthropologists, cognitive scientists, and linguists, both those who adhere to traditional timelines and those who advocate for a deeper history of human cognitive sophistication. Their perspectives will illuminate different facets of this complex puzzle. The standard narrative of human cognitive evolution is comforting in its simplicity. a steady linear progression from primitive to advanced. But what if the reality was messier, more complex, with early peaks of sophistication followed by losses of knowledge? What if our ancestors 250,000 years ago weren't just surviving, but were observing the heavens, developing complex social structures, and perhaps even preserving knowledge in ways we've yet to fully recognize? What might this tell us about the untapped potential of the human mind? As we stand at the threshold of this journey through deep time, one question emerges above all others. Have we fundamentally underestimated our ancient ancestors? And if so, what forbidden knowledge might be waiting to be rediscovered? Chapter 2. The Enigma of Ancient Minds. The implications of what we're about to explore reach far beyond academic curiosity. If humans possessed sophisticated cognitive abilities, proto-language systems, and symbolic thinking as early as 250,000 years ago, our entire understanding of humanity's developmental trajectory requires revision. Consider the conventional timeline of human advancement. We're told complex language emerged perhaps 50,000 years ago, symbolic art 40,000 years ago, agriculture a mere 12,000 years ago. This timeline has shaped not just our understanding of the past, but our conception of ourselves. It reinforces a narrative of steady upward progress, from simple to complex, from instinctual to intellectual, from primitive to advanced. This narrative is comforting. It places us, modern humans, at the pinnacle of an evolutionary journey, the most sophisticated version of humanity yet to exist. But what if this timeline is wrong? What if the capacity for complex thought, language, and symbolism emerged much earlier? The stakes of this question are enormous, touching on fundamental aspects of human identity. If early humans possessed sophisticated cognitive abilities 250,000 years ago, we must ask what happened to this knowledge. Was it lost, forgotten, deliberately suppressed? The answers could reveal patterns of knowledge preservation and loss that remain relevant today. The question also challenges our perception of progress itself. Perhaps human history isn't a straight line upward, but a series of advances and retreats, discoveries and forgettings, innovations and losses. A more complex pattern than we've allowed ourselves to recognize. For traditional religious perspectives, earlier emergence of complex cognition might align better with creation narratives. For those with secular viewpoints, it raises questions about what environmental or evolutionary pressures drove cognitive development earlier than previously thought. The evidence we'll examine tonight suggests that our distant ancestors may have possessed knowledge systems that tracked celestial movements, preserved medicinal information, and encoded complex social structures. Knowledge that in some cases may have been lost and rediscovered multiple times. We must consider why this possibility feels threatening to established narratives. Perhaps because it challenges the comforting notion that we, modern humans, represent the apex of cognitive evolution, that everything before us was simply preparation for our emergence. If people living 250,000 years ago could think abstractly, communicate complex ideas, and preserve knowledge across generations, the gap between them and us narrows considerably. We can no longer maintain comfortable distance from our ancient ancestors. Instead, we must confront the possibility that people with minds very much like our own walked the earth far earlier than we've acknowledged. People who looked up at the same stars, wondered about the same existential questions, and perhaps found answers we've since forgotten. This recognition carries ethical implications for how we view indigenous knowledge systems today. If sophisticated knowledge preservation existed in pre-literate societies of the deep past, perhaps we should reconsider the value of oral traditions that survive in various cultures. The stakes extend to how we understand consciousness itself. Did sophisticated awareness of self, others, and the cosmos emerge gradually over millennia, or did it appear relatively suddenly, far back in our evolutionary past? The answer shapes how we think about animal consciousness, artificial intelligence, and the nature of thought. If complex consciousness emerged earlier than we thought in humans, perhaps we should reconsider its potential presence in other species. For psychology and cognitive science, evidence of early symbolic thinking would challenge models of cognitive development. It would suggest that the capacity for abstract representation is more fundamental to the human mind than previously recognized. For linguistics, earlier emergence of proto-language systems would reshape theories about how language evolved. It might suggest that the capacity for complex communication is not a recent innovation, but a deep-rooted feature of human cognition. If you've ever wondered about the untapped potential of the human mind, these questions should fascinate you. I'd love to hear what cognitive abilities you think might have emerged earliest in our ancestors. Your insights might shed light on aspects of this mystery we haven't considered. For neuroscience, earlier emergence of complex cognition raises questions about when the human brain acquired its distinctive features. Did the neural architecture for abstract thought develop earlier than we've recognized? And if so, what triggered its development? These questions aren't merely academic. They touch on how we understand ourselves in the present. If sophisticated thinking emerged earlier, perhaps the human mind hasn't changed as much over the millennia as we've assumed. Perhaps the differences between ancient and modern humans lie less in our cognitive capabilities and more in the accumulated knowledge we've preserved and built upon. This would suggest that any human, from any time period, might have achieved similar intellectual heights given the right circumstances. This perspective undermines notions of cognitive superiority that have often been used to justify historical injustices. It suggests a fundamental equality of human potential across time and place, a radical notion with profound implications for how we view human diversity. As we delve deeper into the evidence, we must remain mindful of these stakes. We're not merely reconstructing the past, we are potentially reimagining what it means to be human. The forbidden knowledge of early humans, if it existed, might not be forbidden at all, just forgotten, overlooked, or dismissed because it didn't fit neatly into our preferred narratives. Recovering this knowledge requires intellectual courage and a willingness to question established timelines. Tonight we'll attempt to piece together fragments of evidence that suggest our ancestors were engaged in sophisticated thinking far earlier than commonly believed. Evidence that whispers of complex minds operating in the deep past, minds whose capabilities we've only begun to appreciate. As we proceed, the question becomes not just what our ancestors knew, but what we might have forgotten, and what we might still remember if we listen closely enough to the whispers of deep time. Chapter 3. Shadows in the Pleistocene. The world of 250,000 years ago would be both familiar and alien to modern eyes. Earth was in the grip of an ice age. Massive glaciers covered much of the northern hemisphere. Sea levels were lower, exposing coastal plains that are now submerged beneath ocean waters. The climate oscillated between cold glacial periods and warmer interglacials, creating environmental pressures that would have demanded adaptability, planning, and sophisticated survival strategies. It was in this challenging, dynamic world that early humans evolved and developed. Around this time, anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens, were emerging in Africa. Their brains were essentially the same size as ours today. Their bodies were structurally like our own. But what about their minds? This is where our journey truly begins. The conventional narrative tells us that despite having modern bodies and brains, early Homo sapiens lacked the cognitive sophistication of present-day humans. Their technology was simple, their social structures were basic, their symbolic capabilities were limited or non-existent, but this narrative has begun to crumble under the weight of new discoveries. Archaeological finds from across Africa suggest that by 250,000 years ago, early humans were already displaying behaviors that hint at complex cognition. At Pinnacle Point in South Africa, researchers have found evidence of ochre processing dating to around 164,000 years ago. Ochre, a natural pigment, was carefully selected, transported, and processed, suggesting symbolic use long before the supposed cognitive revolution. Even more striking, at Border Cave in South Africa, archaeologists discovered a collection of tools dated to approximately 44,000 years ago that include what appears to be a counting device. This suggests mathematical thinking far earlier than previously acknowledged, but the evidence goes deeper and further back. At sites across Africa, researchers have found stone tools showing levels of craftsmanship that would have required not just manual dexterity, but planning, abstract thinking, and possibly language to teach these skills to others. The Lupemban tool tradition of Central Africa, dating to between 300,000 and 150,000 years ago, includes complex, carefully crafted stone points that suggest sophisticated conceptualization and execution. These weren't crude implements, but precision tools requiring advanced cognitive abilities. At Kathupan in South Africa, archaeologists have discovered stone points that appear to have been designed as spear tips, dating to around 500,000 years ago. This suggests not just tool use, but weapon making, requiring planning, foresight, and possibly coordinated hunting strategies. These findings challenge the notion that early humans were cognitively simple. They suggest that the capacity for complex thought, for imagining a desired outcome and working systematically to achieve it, was present much earlier than conventional timelines allow. But perhaps most provocative are the hints of symbolic thinking from this deep past. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, researchers discovered pieces of ochre engraved with geometric patterns dating to around 73,000 years ago, long before the supposed emergence of symbolic thought. These weren't random scratches. The patterns showed deliberate, repeated geometric designs, evidence of abstract thinking and symbolic representation tens of thousands of years before such capabilities were thought to have emerged. Have you ever wondered what kinds of knowledge might have been preserved in such symbols? I often think about what these geometric patterns might have meant to their creators. Were they keeping records, expressing ideas, preserving information for future generations? Even more astonishingly, at a site called Panga ya Saidi in Kenya, archaeologists recently discovered beads made from ostrich eggshells dating to around 78,000 years ago. These beads suggest not just aesthetic appreciation, but social signaling, markers of identity and possibly status. The picture that emerges is not of cognitively limited beings, but of minds capable of abstract thought, symbolic representation, and complex social organization. Minds, in other words, not so different from our own. But if early humans possessed these cognitive capabilities, why has the evidence remained so elusive? Part of the answer lies in preservation. Organic materials decay. Knowledge systems preserved through oral tradition leave no direct archaeological trace. Another part lies in our own biases and expectations. We've been looking for evidence of intelligence through a very specific lens, one that privileges certain types of artifacts and behaviors over others. We've focused on durable materials like stone, bone, and cave paintings, but these represent only a fraction of early human material culture. What of wooden tools, woven baskets, or knowledge preserved through song, story, and ritual? The absence of evidence has too often been interpreted as evidence of absence. But increasingly, archaeologists are recognizing that early humans may have expressed their cognitive complexity in ways that don't preserve well in the archaeological record. Consider language, perhaps the most sophisticated cognitive tool humans possess. Language leaves no direct archaeological trace, yet the complexity of tool-making traditions suggests knowledge transmission that would have been difficult without some form of language. Linguistic analysis suggests that complex language may have emerged much earlier than previously thought. Studies of language diversity indicate that the time needed for such diversity to develop points to origins far deeper than the conventional 50,000-year timeline. The anatomical structures necessary for speech, including the hyoid bone and vocal tract configuration, were present in early Homo sapiens and even in Neanderthals. The physical capability for complex vocalization existed long before the supposed cognitive revolution. As we piece together these fragments of evidence, a different picture of our ancient ancestors begins to emerge. Not as cognitive primitives, but as fully human minds grappling with their world through symbols, language, and abstract thought. This revised understanding doesn't diminish the achievements of later periods. The explosion of cave art in Europe 40,000 years ago, the development of agriculture 12,000 years ago, the rise of writing systems 5,000 years ago, these remain revolutionary developments. But they may represent not the first emergence of cognitive sophistication, but rather particular expressions of capabilities that had existed perhaps latently for hundreds of thousands of years. Capabilities that may have expressed themselves differently in different times and places. As we continue our exploration, we must ask, what conditions allowed these cognitive capabilities to develop? What environmental pressures, social structures, or evolutionary advantages might have driven the emergence of abstract thought and symbolic representation so early in our history? And perhaps most intriguingly, what knowledge might these early humans have possessed that we've since forgotten? What wisdom from the deep past might be waiting to be rediscovered? Chapter 4. Etched in Stone and Memory. The evidence for early human cognitive sophistication isn't limited to a few isolated artifacts. It emerges as a pattern across continents, time periods, and types of remains. Let us examine the most compelling pieces of this ancient puzzle. At Trinil, Java, archaeologists discovered a shell engraved with geometric patterns dating to approximately 500,000 years ago, created by Homo erectus, not even our direct ancestors, but a different human species. This single artifact challenges everything we thought we knew about symbolic thinking. The zigzag pattern isn't random or accidental. Analysis shows it was created deliberately, requiring concentration and fine motor control. But more importantly, it suggests abstract thinking and symbolic representation 500,000 years ago, 10 times earlier than the conventional timeline allows. What would drive a being to spend time etching patterns into a shell? Not survival, not reproduction, not any immediate practical need. This represents something else entirely, perhaps aesthetic appreciation, symbolic communication, or abstract thought for its own sake. In Spain's Cueva de los Aviones, archaeologists found seashells bearing traces of pigment dating to approximately 115,000 years ago. These weren't created by Homo sapiens, but by Neanderthals, our evolutionary cousins whom we've long characterized as cognitively inferior. The pigments, red and yellow ochre, weren't used for any obvious practical purpose. Their most likely use was decorative or symbolic, suggesting Neanderthals engaged in abstract thinking and possibly ritual behavior, far earlier than previously acknowledged. At Skull Cave in Israel, researchers discovered seashells that appear to have been collected and transported inland around 100,000 years ago. These shells show evidence of being strung together, suggesting they were worn as jewelry, an early form of symbolic adornment. In South Africa's Blombos Cave, archaeologists found not just the ochre engravings mentioned earlier, but also a complete paint-making kit dating to 100,000 years ago. It included ochre, bone, charcoal, grindstones, and abalone shells for mixing, evidence of complex multi-step processing. This paint-making toolkit suggests not just symbolic thinking, but planning, chemical knowledge, and possibly knowledge transmission across generations. The technique for creating the paint wasn't discovered anew by each individual, but preserved and taught within the community. At Border Cave in South Africa, researchers found a piece of notched baboon bone dating to around 40,000 years ago. The notches appear to be deliberate, possibly representing a counting or calendar system, suggesting mathematical thinking far earlier than previously thought. The implications are profound. If early humans were tracking numerical patterns, perhaps lunar cycles, seasonal changes, or other recurring phenomena, they were engaged in precisely the kind of abstract pattern recognition that underlies scientific thinking. In Australia, recent dating of rock art has pushed back the timeline for human arrival to at least 65,000 years ago. This means that the people who made this journey possessed the cognitive capabilities, technical skills, and social organization necessary for open ocean navigation. Think about what this means. To cross open ocean to Australia, early humans needed to build seaworthy vessels, navigate using stars or other environmental cues, coordinate group efforts, and imagine destinations they couldn't see, all hallmarks of advanced cognition. I'm genuinely curious. What kind of ancient knowledge do you think would have been most crucial for early human survival? Navigation, medicinal plants, tool-making? The skills our ancestors developed tell us so much about their cognitive capabilities. In the Bruniquel cave in France, archaeologists discovered circular structures made from broken stalagmites, dated to approximately 176,000 years ago. These structures were created by Neanderthals, deep inside the cave where natural light couldn't reach. This means the builders were using controlled fire for illumination, planning complex structures, and venturing deep into caves for non-survival purposes. What were these structures for? Ritual? Ceremony? The purpose remains mysterious, but the cognitive implications are clear. At Pinnacle Point in South Africa, early humans were heat-treating stone to improve its flaking properties as early as 164,000 years ago. This process requires understanding of how materials change under heat, a form of primitive materials science that suggests sophisticated causal reasoning. The heat treatment wasn't a matter of simply throwing stones into fire. It required careful temperature control, timing, and understanding of how different stones respond, knowledge that would have been accumulated and transmitted across generations. This pattern of evidence suggests not just isolated instances of symbolic thinking or technical skill, but sustained traditions of knowledge, preservation, and transmission. How was this knowledge preserved without writing? Through oral tradition, ritual, mythology, and embodied practice. Consider what this means for our understanding of language. Complex knowledge transmission across generations would be extremely difficult without some form of language. The evidence for early knowledge systems indirectly supports the case for early language development. Linguistic studies suggest that the diversity of human languages would have required far longer than 50,000 years to develop. Some linguists argue that the foundation for human language may have emerged as early as 500,000 years ago, with fully modern language capabilities present by 200,000 years ago. The FOXP2 gene, critical for language development in humans, appears in its modern form in both Homo sapiens and Neanderthal DNA. This suggests the genetic basis for complex language was already in place long before the supposed cognitive revolution. If early humans possessed language, symbolic thinking, and knowledge preservation systems, what might they have known? What astronomical observations might they have recorded? What medicinal knowledge might they have preserved? What philosophical insights might they have developed? The evidence we've examined suggests they may have known far more than we've given them credit for. They may have tracked lunar and solar cycles, preserved knowledge of plant properties, developed complex social structures, and perhaps even contemplated their place in the cosmos. But here we encounter a profound mystery, one that will guide the next phase of our exploration. If early humans possessed this cognitive sophistication and accumulated knowledge, why does the archaeological record show relatively little technological progress for hundreds of thousands of years? Why didn't this knowledge lead to earlier development of agriculture, metallurgy, or other technologies that emerged much later? Was knowledge lost repeatedly due to environmental catastrophes, population bottlenecks, or other factors? Or are we simply looking for the wrong evidence? The standard explanation is that early humans lacked the cognitive capabilities for cumulative culture, the ability to build knowledge progressively across generations. But the evidence we've examined challenges this explanation. They clearly could preserve and transmit complex knowledge. So what happened? If early humans were thinking symbolically, communicating through language, and preserving knowledge 250,000 years ago, why did it take until relatively recently for this to manifest in ways we readily recognize as civilization? As we stand at this threshold between what we thought we knew and what the evidence increasingly suggests, a startling possibility emerges. Perhaps the story of human cognition isn't one of steady progress from primitive to advanced, but something far more complex and mysterious. Perhaps our ancestors experienced periods of profound knowledge development, followed by losses, cycles of discovery and forgetting played out across millennia. Perhaps they knew things we are only now rediscovering. or things we have yet to understand. The evidence has led us to a profound question that will guide the remainder of our exploration. What forbidden knowledge might our ancestors have possessed? And why do we find it so difficult to acknowledge the possibility of their cognitive sophistication? As we prepare to delve deeper into this mystery, we must confront the possibility that we've been wrong, not just about when human cognitive sophistication emerged, but about the very nature of knowledge itself. The answers may challenge everything we thought we knew about what it means to be human. Chapter 5. The Pattern of Forgotten Knowledge. As we venture deeper into the mystery of ancient human cognition, we encounter a pattern that defies easy explanation. Across continents and millennia, evidence suggests that sophisticated knowledge repeatedly emerged and was subsequently lost. Consider the case of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. This monumental site, with massive carved stone pillars arranged in circles, dates to approximately 12,000 years ago, predating agriculture, pottery, metallurgy, and writing. The conventional narrative tells us that hunter-gatherers lacked the social organization and technical knowledge to create such structures. Yet, Göbekli Tepe exists, with precisely carved multi-ton stone pillars featuring sophisticated relief carvings of animals and abstract symbols. More puzzling still, after functioning for centuries, Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried around 10,000 years ago. Knowledge of its construction techniques and purpose seems to have vanished completely from human memory until its rediscovery in 1994. This pattern of advanced knowledge followed by apparent loss appears repeatedly in the archaeological record. It suggests not a steady upward progression of human knowledge, but waves of advancement and retreat, a more complex picture than conventional timelines allow. Consider the mathematical knowledge encoded in the layout of Stonehenge, built between 3000 to 2000 BCE. Its builders incorporated sophisticated astronomical alignments and geometric principles, yet this knowledge apparently disappeared from Britain for thousands of years. In Malta, the megalithic temples built between 3600 to 2500 BCE demonstrate advanced architectural knowledge that seemingly vanished after their abandonment. The technical sophistication needed to move and position multi-ton stones wasn't seen again in the region for millennia. These examples come from relatively recent prehistory, periods for which we have abundant archaeological evidence. What might this pattern suggest about much earlier periods, where evidence is far more fragmentary? If sophisticated knowledge could emerge and disappear multiple times within the last 12,000 years, might similar cycles have occurred during the preceding 240,000 years of anatomically modern human existence? The evidence, though limited, suggests this possibility. The Lupemban tool industry of Central Africa, dating to 300,000 to 150,000 years ago, produced stone tools of remarkable sophistication. Yet this technology seems to have disappeared, replaced by simpler tool forms, a technological regression rather than progression. At Katanga in the Democratic Republic of Congo, archaeologists discovered sophisticated barbed bone points dating to approximately 90,000 years ago. This technology then disappeared from the archaeological record, only to re-emerge much later. Another instance of knowledge lost and later rediscovered. I've always wondered what other technologies or knowledge systems might have been lost to time. If you had to guess, what ancient knowledge do you think would most surprise us if rediscovered? The pattern of loss and rediscovery seems to be a recurring theme in human history. These archaeological anomalies challenge the narrative of steady human progress. They suggest that sophisticated knowledge has repeatedly emerged, been lost, and later rediscovered, raising profound questions about the nature of cultural transmission and preservation. One explanation involves population bottlenecks, times when human populations crashed due to climate change, disease, or other catastrophes. Small, isolated groups might lose knowledge that had been preserved in larger communities through specialized roles or traditions. The Toba catastrophe theory suggests that around 74,000 years ago, a supervolcanic eruption in Indonesia caused a global cooling event that reduced human populations to perhaps a few thousand individuals worldwide. Such an event could have erased vast amounts of accumulated knowledge, More recent population crashes, like the Black Death in 14th century Europe, demonstrably resulted in lost technical knowledge that took generations to recover. Imagine the impact of even more severe population reductions on pre-literate societies with oral knowledge transmission. Another explanation involves the nature of knowledge preservation itself. Without writing, knowledge must be preserved through oral tradition, ritual practice, and material culture, all vulnerable to disruption through warfare, migration, or cultural suppression. The suppression of indigenous knowledge systems during European colonization provides a recent example. Entire cosmologies, botanical pharmacopoeia, and technical traditions were deliberately erased through cultural genocide, knowledge lost within a few generations. If similar processes occurred in deep prehistory, through intergroup conflict, population displacement, or cultural dominance, sophisticated knowledge could have been repeatedly lost and forgotten. The archaeological record might preserve only fragments of these lost traditions. Climate change offers another explanation for knowledge discontinuities. As environments shifted, knowledge adapted to specific ecological conditions might have become irrelevant, preserved only in myth or ritual before eventually disappearing entirely. During the last 250,000 years, Earth experienced multiple ice ages and interglacial periods. As environments transformed, humans migrated, adapted, or perished, potentially losing specialized knowledge tied to particular landscapes or resources. These factors, population bottlenecks, knowledge suppression, environmental change, could have created a pattern of knowledge emergence and loss that the conventional archaeological narrative fails to capture. This pattern challenges our understanding of human cognitive development. If sophisticated knowledge repeatedly emerged and disappeared, perhaps the cognitive capabilities for complex thought were present much earlier than conventionally believed. The limiting factor may not have been cognitive capacity, but the fragility of knowledge preservation systems. This perspective shifts our understanding of the cognitive revolution, supposedly occurring around 50,000 years ago. Perhaps this wasn't the first emergence of sophisticated cognition, but simply the point at which population size, stability, and interconnection allowed knowledge to accumulate sustainably. The evidence suggests that early humans possessed cognitive capabilities far beyond what conventional timelines allow. They could think abstractly, communicate symbolically, and preserve complex knowledge, yet this knowledge remained vulnerable to disruption and loss. This vulnerability created a pattern of knowledge cycles rather than steady progress, waves of sophisticated understanding followed by periods of apparent regression. Only in relatively recent prehistory did knowledge begin to accumulate in a more stable, cumulative fashion. The implications are profound. If early humans possessed sophisticated cognitive capabilities but struggled to preserve knowledge across generations, we may need to reimagine our entire understanding of human cognitive and cultural evolution. Rather than asking when humans became capable of complex thought, we might instead ask when and how humans developed robust systems for preserving and transmitting knowledge across generations. The answer may lie not in cognitive evolution, but in cultural technologies. Writing systems, which emerged only around 5,000 years ago, dramatically enhanced knowledge preservation. But what knowledge preservation systems might have existed before writing, and what sophisticated understanding might they have contained? As we examine the evidence for early human cognition, we must remain aware of these knowledge cycles, the pattern of emergence, loss, and rediscovery that seems to characterize much of human prehistory. This awareness shapes how we interpret the fragmentary evidence that remains. What we're pursuing isn't just an academic question about when certain cognitive capabilities emerged. We're seeking to understand a profound mystery about human knowledge itself, its fragility, its resilience, and its complex journey through deep time. This perspective allows us to approach the next phase of our exploration with fresh eyes. Perhaps the most compelling evidence for early human cognitive sophistication lies not in the archaeological record at all, but in something more intangible: the echoes of ancient knowledge preserved in myth and oral tradition. Say Chapter 6, Echoes from the Forgotten Past. Myths and legends have traditionally been dismissed by archaeologists as unreliable fantasies with little historical value. But a growing body of evidence suggests that ancient stories sometimes preserve accurate information about events from deep prehistory, knowledge transmitted orally across thousands of years. Consider Aboriginal Australian traditions describing coastal flooding that occurred when sea levels rose after the last ice age. Geological evidence confirms these floods happened between 7,000 and 18,000 years ago, yet the stories preserved accurate details about submerged landscapes for hundreds of generations. Geologists mapping the Australian continental shelf have found the underwater features exactly where Aboriginal traditions said they would be. These aren't vague stories, but specific geographic knowledge preserved through purely oral transmission for at least 400 generations. Similar findings emerge worldwide. Native American traditions accurately describe volcanic eruptions, meteorite impacts, and tsunamis confirmed by geological evidence to have occurred thousands of years ago. The Klamath tribe of Oregon preserved stories describing the formation of Crater Lake through volcanic eruption, an event that occurred approximately 7,700 years ago. The stories contain specific details confirmed by modern geology, transmitted orally across nearly 300 generations. These verified examples of long-term oral knowledge transmission raise a profound question. If some myths preserve accurate information about events from 7,000 to 18,000 years ago, might older myths contain kernels of truth about even more ancient events and knowledge? Certain mythic themes appear consistently across cultures with no historical contact. Flood myths, Golden Age narratives, and stories of celestial knowledge given to humans by divine beings appear in traditions worldwide, suggesting possible shared origins in deep prehistory. The Greek poet Hesiod described a sequence of ages, golden, silver, bronze, heroic, and iron, with humanity progressively declining from an original state of sophisticated knowledge. Similar degradation narratives appear in Hindu, Persian, Egyptian, and Mesoamerican traditions. These widely dispersed myths share a common theme: that ancient humans possessed profound knowledge that was subsequently lost. While individual details vary, the pattern is consistent enough to warrant serious consideration as a possible cultural memory of actual events. I find it fascinating how similar these lost Golden Age myths are across completely isolated cultures. What do you think? Could they contain grains of historical truth, or are they just human psychological patterns? These ancient stories raise compelling questions about our past. Recent archaeological discoveries have repeatedly confirmed elements of myths once dismissed as pure fantasy. Troy, Mycenae, and numerous other sites mentioned in ancient texts were discovered precisely where traditions placed them after centuries of being considered fictional. More intriguingly, certain out-of-place artifacts and anomalous evidence suggest technological knowledge that doesn't fit neatly into conventional timelines. While we must approach such evidence with scientific rigor, some findings resist easy dismissal. The Antikythera mechanism, discovered in a 2,000-year-old shipwreck, reveals sophisticated astronomical knowledge and mechanical engineering capabilities previously thought impossible for ancient Greeks. Its complexity suggests a tradition of similar devices that haven't survived. The Baghdad battery, dating to the Parthian period, 250 BCE, 224 CE, appears to be an early galvanic cell capable of producing electrical current. If correctly interpreted, it suggests understanding of electrical principles thought to have been discovered many centuries later. Ancient Indian texts describe what appear to be batteries, flying machines, and weapons, with effects resembling nuclear radiation. While often dismissed as fantasy, these texts contain demonstrably accurate astronomical observations and mathematical formulas, raising questions about their other content. The precision engineering of Egyptian megaliths, Incan stonework, and other ancient constructions has proven difficult to replicate, even with modern technology. This suggests sophisticated knowledge of mathematics, materials science, and engineering principles not reflected in conventional timelines. In the Piri Reis map of 1513, certain coastlines appear to be depicted with accuracy impossible given the state of exploration at that time. The map explicitly cites ancient sources, suggesting earlier knowledge later lost and rediscovered. The point isn't that these examples definitively prove advanced ancient technology. Rather, they demonstrate that our understanding of ancient knowledge systems remains incomplete, with anomalies that resist explanation within conventional historical frameworks. When we combine these archaeological anomalies with the demonstrated capacity of oral traditions to preserve accurate information for thousands of years, a compelling possibility emerges. Perhaps myths about ancient knowledge aren't entirely fictional, but preserve distorted memories of actual capabilities. If Aboriginal traditions can accurately describe coastal landscapes submerged 18,000 years ago, might other traditions preserve memories from even deeper time? Might some myths about advanced ancient knowledge reflect actual capabilities of early humans that were subsequently lost? Consider the widespread myths about celestial knowledge, stories claiming that ancient humans possessed sophisticated astronomical understanding. Archaeological evidence increasingly confirms that prehistoric peoples worldwide constructed elaborate astronomical observatories and tracking systems. Göbekli Tepe's pillars appear to encode celestial information, including possibly recording a cometary impact around 13,000 years ago. Stonehenge precisely tracks solstices and equinoxes. Chaco Canyon structures align with lunar, solar, and stellar cycles with remarkable precision. These structures confirm that ancient peoples dedicated enormous resources to tracking celestial movements, exactly as their myths claim. This raises the question, how much earlier might sophisticated astronomical observation have begun? Recently discovered rock art in northern Australia, dated to approximately 17,000 years ago, appears to depict the Pleiades star cluster in its correct configuration. This suggests astronomical observation and symbolic representation far earlier than conventional timelines allow. Even more intriguing are myths describing celestial catastrophes, cometary impacts, meteor showers, and other astronomical events. Recent geological evidence confirms a major cometary impact occurred approximately 12,800 years ago, triggering the Younger Dryas cooling period. Indigenous stories worldwide describe this event, with specific details matching the geological evidence. This suggests oral transmission of eyewitness accounts across more than 500 generations, an astonishing feat of knowledge preservation through purely non-written means. If accurate information about astronomical events and submerged landscapes could be preserved for 13,000, 18,000 years through oral tradition alone, what other knowledge might have been transmitted from deep prehistory? And how much might have been lost? The pattern that emerges challenges conventional understanding of both human cognitive capabilities and knowledge transmission systems. It suggests that early humans possessed sophisticated observational abilities, abstract thinking, and robust methods for preserving complex information across generations. These capabilities would have required language far more complex than the primitive communication systems conventionally attributed to early humans. They would have demanded social structures specifically designed to preserve and transmit knowledge accurately across generations. Most importantly, they would have required minds capable of abstract thought, symbolic representation, and systematic observation. Precisely the cognitive capabilities that the conventional narrative claims emerged only recently in human evolution. The evidence suggests otherwise, as we synthesize the archaeological evidence of early symbolic behavior with the demonstrated capacity of oral traditions to preserve information across millennia. A different picture of human cognitive history begins to emerge. Not a recent awakening, but an ancient capacity for sophisticated thought. This capacity appears to have expressed itself differently in different times and places, sometimes flowering into complex knowledge systems, sometimes receding in periods of disruption and loss. The result is not a linear progression, but a complex pattern of advances and retreats across deep time. The forbidden knowledge of early humans may not have been forbidden at all, simply forgotten, preserved only in fragments and echoes that we're now learning to recognize. As we piece together these fragments, we begin to glimpse a different story of human cognitive evolution. It's a story that challenges our assumptions, complicates our timelines and ultimately offers a more nuanced understanding of what it means to be human. A story written not just in stone and bone, but in myths and traditions that have survived the erosion of millennia. Chapter 7. The implications of ancient wisdom. If early humans possessed sophisticated cognitive capabilities and knowledge systems 250,000 years ago, the implications extend far beyond archaeology and anthropology. They touch on fundamental questions about human nature, consciousness, and our relationship with knowledge itself. The first and perhaps most profound implication concerns our understanding of human potential. If people living hundreds of thousands of years ago could think abstractly, communicate symbolically, and preserve complex knowledge, perhaps cognitive sophistication is more fundamental to human nature than we've recognized. This would suggest that the capacity for complex thought isn't a recent evolutionary development or a product of modern civilization. Rather, it may be an intrinsic feature of being human, present whenever environmental conditions and social structures allow it to express itself. If true, this reframes how we understand both human history and human potential. The differences between ancient and modern humans might lie less in our cognitive capabilities and more in our accumulated knowledge and technological infrastructure. The second major implication concerns knowledge stability and resilience. If sophisticated knowledge systems repeatedly emerged and disappeared throughout human prehistory, we must confront the fragility of knowledge itself. Even today, with writing, digital storage, and global information networks, knowledge remains vulnerable. Languages disappear. Traditional practices are forgotten. Technical expertise vanishes when not actively maintained and transmitted to new generations. The climate crisis, political instability, and other contemporary challenges raise sobering questions about the long-term stability of our own knowledge systems. What crucial understanding might we lose in periods of disruption? What wisdom from the past have we already forgotten? History demonstrates that technological sophistication provides no guarantee against knowledge loss. The techniques for creating Roman concrete, Damascus steel, and Stradivarius violins were all lost despite existing in literate societies with seemingly stable knowledge transmission systems. I've often pondered what modern knowledge would be most crucial to preserve through a societal collapse. Basic medicine, agriculture, metallurgy. If you had to preserve just 3 areas of knowledge for future generations, what would they be? The third implication concerns how we value different types of knowledge. If early humans preserved sophisticated understanding through oral tradition, ritual practice, and other non-written methods, perhaps we should reconsider the value of indigenous knowledge systems that persist today. Western science has traditionally dismissed traditional ecological knowledge, ethnobotanical practices, and indigenous cosmologies as unscientific or superstitious. Yet when tested, these knowledge systems often contain empirically accurate information accumulated over centuries of careful observation. Aboriginal burning practices in Australia, Polynesian celestial navigation techniques, and traditional pharmacological knowledge worldwide have all demonstrated empirical validity when tested by conventional science. Yet this knowledge was preserved through methods very different from written scientific tradition. This suggests that human beings have developed multiple valid systems for observing, understanding, and preserving knowledge about the world. Written science represents just one such system, powerful in many ways, but not necessarily superior in all domains to other approaches. If early humans developed sophisticated knowledge through observation and experimentation, preserved it through oral tradition and ritual practice, and transmitted it across hundreds of generations, we might need to broaden our understanding of what constitutes science itself. Perhaps the scientific impulse is older and more universal than we've recognized. The fourth implication concerns consciousness itself. If early humans were engaged in symbolic thinking, abstract representation, and contemplation of their place in the cosmos, perhaps sophisticated consciousness emerged much earlier than conventionally believed. This would suggest that consciousness isn't a recent development, but a deep feature of human existence, perhaps even predating anatomically modern humans. The implications for how we understand animal consciousness, artificial intelligence, and the nature of mind itself are profound. Recent research on animal cognition reveals capabilities once thought uniquely human: tool use, self-recognition, cultural transmission, and even rudimentary symbolic communication. This suggests that the cognitive gulf between humans and other species may be narrower than previously thought. Similarly, if consciousness and abstract thinking are fundamental rather than recent developments, this raises questions about consciousness itself. Is it an emergent property of complex neural systems, a fundamental feature of reality that neural systems access rather than create? The fifth implication concerns our relationship with technology. If early humans possessed sophisticated knowledge without advanced technology, perhaps knowledge and technology follow different developmental trajectories, sometimes converging, sometimes diverging. Modern civilization tends to equate technological advancement with intellectual sophistication. Yet the evidence suggests that early humans may have developed profound understanding of celestial cycles, plant properties, ecological relationships, and other complex systems with minimal technology. This challenges the notion that technological advancement necessarily represents intellectual progress. Perhaps some types of knowledge flourish best with minimal technological mediation, direct observation, experiential learning, and embodied practice rather than instrumental measurement. If early humans maintained sophisticated astronomical knowledge without telescopes, complex pharmacological understanding without laboratories, and detailed ecological knowledge without scientific instruments, we might need to reconsider our own relationship with technology. Does technology always enhance understanding, or might it sometimes create distance between observer and observed? The sixth implication concerns environmental relationship. If early humans developed knowledge systems based on careful, multi-generational observation of their environments, they likely possessed ecological understanding that modern science has only recently rediscovered. Indigenous knowledge systems worldwide demonstrate sophisticated understanding of ecosystem relationships, sustainable harvesting practices, and ecological management techniques. Many of these approaches are now being validated by conventional environmental science after centuries of dismissal. If similar knowledge systems existed in deep prehistory, early humans may have possessed environmental wisdom that could prove crucial for addressing contemporary ecological crises. The forbidden knowledge of early humans might include not just technical capabilities, but ecological insights we urgently need to rediscover. The seventh and perhaps most profound implication concerns human identity itself. If sophisticated thought, symbolic communication, and complex knowledge systems have characterized human existence for hundreds of thousands of years, our self-conception as a species requires revision. We have tended to view ourselves as recently awakened beings, primitive for most of our evolutionary history, achieving true intelligence and consciousness only in the recent past. This narrative places modern humans at the pinnacle of cognitive development. But if human beings have possessed essentially modern cognitive capabilities for 250,000 years or more, we must confront a different possibility. Perhaps we are not newly awakened beings, but amnesiacs, carriers of an ancient cognitive heritage that we've largely forgotten. This perspective challenges the narrative of steady upward progress that underlies much of modern thought. It suggests that human history may be characterized not by continuous advancement, but by cycles of discovery and loss, remembering and forgetting. What emerges is a more complex, nuanced understanding of human cognitive history. Not a straight line upward, but a pattern of expansions and contractions, flowering and withering, as knowledge emerges, develops, and sometimes disappears across the vast expanse of deep time. This pattern raises profound questions about our present moment. Are we experiencing an unprecedented flowering of human knowledge, or simply rediscovering understanding that existed in different forms throughout human history? And what does this pattern suggest about our future? If knowledge has repeatedly emerged and disappeared throughout human prehistory, what might this tell us about the fragility or resilience of our own knowledge systems? As we stand at this juncture, looking both backward into the mists of deep time and forward into an uncertain future, the implications of early human cognitive sophistication become increasingly clear. They touch not just on academic questions, but on our fundamental understanding of ourselves. The forbidden knowledge of early humans may include not just technical capabilities or cosmological understanding, but a different way of being human, a relationship with knowledge itself that we've largely forgotten. Rediscovering this relationship may prove crucial for navigating the challenges that lie ahead. As we prepare to examine specific case studies of early human knowledge systems in our next section, we must approach the evidence with both scientific rigor and an openness to possibilities that challenge conventional narratives. The story that emerges may fundamentally transform our understanding of what it means to be human. For if early humans possessed sophisticated cognitive capabilities and complex knowledge systems 250,000 years ago, we aren't just examining the distant past. We're recovering a lost chapter of our own story, a chapter that might hold keys to understanding not just who we were, but who we are and who we might become. Theory Chapter 8, The Cognitive Evolution Puzzle. As we approach the core of our mystery, three competing theories emerge to explain early human cognitive capabilities. Each offers a different framework for understanding the evidence we've examined, and each carries profound implications for how we conceptualize human consciousness and knowledge. The first theory, the gradual emergence model, aligns most closely with conventional archaeological perspectives. It suggests that human cognitive capabilities developed incrementally over hundreds of thousands of years, with symbolic thinking and complex language emerging relatively recently. According to this model, while early humans possessed the neurological hardware for advanced cognition, the software, the cultural frameworks and social structures developed much more gradually. Full symbolic thinking emerged only around 50,000 to 70,000 years ago during the cognitive revolution. This model points to the apparent acceleration of cultural and technological innovation after 50,000 years ago as evidence for a fundamental shift in cognitive capabilities. The explosion of cave art, figurines, and sophisticated tools represents not just cultural development, but cognitive transformation. Proponents argue that earlier symbolic artifacts, like the Blombos cave engravings from 100,000 years ago, represent isolated instances rather than systematic symbolic thinking. They suggest that truly modern cognition required specific genetic changes or cultural innovations that occurred relatively recently. The strengths of this model lie in its explanatory power for the apparent acceleration of cultural complexity in the Upper Paleolithic period. If humans suddenly acquired new cognitive capabilities around 50,000 years ago, this would explain the flowering of symbolic expression that followed. However, the model struggles to account for the growing evidence of sophisticated behavior from much earlier periods. The trinil shell engravings from 500,000 years ago, the heat-treated stone tools from 164,000 years ago, and other examples suggest symbolic capabilities long before the supposed cognitive revolution. The second theory, the early cognitive capacity model, proposes that essentially modern cognitive capabilities emerged with anatomically modern humans around 300,000 to 200,000 years ago. Rather than gradual cognitive evolution, this model suggests that the full suite of human cognitive abilities appeared relatively early. According to this perspective, the apparent delay in cultural and technological complexity wasn't due to cognitive limitations, but to demographic and social factors. Small, isolated populations couldn't sustain cumulative cultural evolution regardless of individual cognitive capabilities. Only when population densities increased and social networks expanded, allowing innovations to spread and be preserved, did cultural complexity accelerate. The cognitive capabilities were present all along. What changed were the conditions for their expression and preservation. This model points to the sophisticated behaviors evident in early human sites across Africa. Complex tool manufacturing, ochre processing, long-distance trade networks, as evidence for fully modern cognition long before the conventional cognitive revolution. The limitations were social and demographic, not cognitive. The early cognitive capacity model better accounts for the early evidence of symbolic behavior, but it raises questions about why these capabilities remained relatively unexpressed for so long. If early humans could think symbolically, why didn't cultural complexity develop more rapidly? The third theory, the cyclical knowledge model, offers perhaps the most radical reframing. It suggests that sophisticated cognitive capabilities and complex knowledge systems have repeatedly emerged and collapsed throughout human prehistory, creating a pattern of advances and retreats rather than steady progress. I've been pondering which of these models feels most convincing to you so far. Has your perspective changed as we've explored the evidence? Sometimes examining competing theories helps clarify the strengths and weaknesses in our understanding. According to this model, early humans possessed essentially modern cognitive capabilities from at least 200,000 years ago and periodically developed sophisticated knowledge systems. However, these systems remained vulnerable to disruption through climate change, population crashes, migration, or conflict. The resulting pattern wasn't one of steady cognitive evolution, but of knowledge cycles, periods where sophisticated understanding flourished, followed by periods of loss and simplification. The apparent cognitive revolution, around 50,000 years ago, represents not new capabilities but new conditions for knowledge preservation. This model points to the demonstrable pattern of knowledge loss in more recent history. The disappearance of sophisticated technologies, even in literate societies, the documented loss of entire knowledge systems during colonization, the vulnerability of specialized knowledge during population crashes. It suggests similar processes operated in deep prehistory. The cyclical knowledge model aligns with indigenous perspectives worldwide, which often describe cycles of knowledge flowering and loss rather than steady progress. It also accounts for both the early evidence of sophisticated cognition and the apparent acceleration of cultural complexity in later periods. Each of these models offers a different lens for interpreting the archaeological evidence, and each carries different implications for how we understand human cognitive evolution. The conventional gradual emergence model places modern humans at the apex of a steady cognitive progression. The early cognitive capacity model suggests that our cognitive capabilities haven't fundamentally changed for hundreds of thousands of years, only the conditions for their expression. This implies that early humans possessed essentially the same cognitive potential as people today. The cyclical knowledge model suggests that human history isn't a story of steady progress at all, but of repeated cycles of advancement and retreat, knowledge gained and lost across millennia. This challenges our entire conception of human development and progress. As we weigh these competing theories, we must consider not just the archaeological evidence, but emerging insights from neuroscience, genetics, linguistics, and other fields. Recent discoveries in these areas have begun to shed new light on the question of early human cognition. Genetic evidence suggests that the neural architecture for language existed in the human lineage long before the supposed cognitive revolution. The FOXP2 gene, critical for language development, appears in its modern form in Neanderthal DNA dating to at least 400,000 years ago. Neuroimaging studies of modern humans engaged in stone toolmaking reveal activation patterns suggesting that this activity shares neural substrates with language processing. This implies that the cognitive foundations for language may have co-evolved with toolmaking capabilities hundreds of thousands of years ago. Linguistic analyses suggest that the diversity of human languages would have required far longer than 50,000 years to develop. Some linguists argue that the foundation for human language capabilities must have emerged at least 200,000 to 300,000 years ago to account for current linguistic diversity. Archaeological evidence increasingly pushes back the timeline for behaviors previously thought to have emerged recently. Long-distance trade, symbolic ornamentation, complex tool manufacturing, and other supposedly recent behaviors now appear in sites dating to 100,000 to 300,000 years ago. As we integrate these multiple lines of evidence, the cyclical knowledge model emerges as increasingly compelling. It accounts for both the early evidence of sophisticated cognition and the apparent delay in cultural acceleration, without requiring implausible cognitive limitations in anatomically modern humans. This model suggests that our ancestors possessed essentially modern cognitive capabilities from at least 200,000 years ago, periodically developing sophisticated knowledge systems that remained vulnerable to disruption and loss. Only relatively recently have we developed knowledge preservation systems robust enough to sustain cumulative cultural evolution. If this model is correct, the implications are profound. It suggests that we fundamentally misunderstood not just human cognitive evolution, but the very nature of knowledge itself, its vulnerability, its transmission requirements, and its relationship with human consciousness. As we prepare to examine the latest scientific evidence bearing on these questions, we must remain open to possibilities that challenge conventional narratives. The story that emerges may be more complex, more nuanced, and ultimately more illuminating than the linear progression we've traditionally embraced. Our Chapter 9, The New Science of Ancient Minds. Recent scientific advances have revolutionized our ability to extract information from the distant past. New dating techniques, ancient DNA analysis, microscopic wear pattern studies, and computational modeling have all contributed to a rapidly evolving understanding of early human cognition. Perhaps most significant is the development of ancient DNA sequencing technologies that allow us to examine the genetic makeup of humans who lived hundreds of thousands of years ago. These studies have revealed surprising insights about the cognitive potential of our ancient ancestors. Analysis of Neanderthal DNA has revealed that they possessed the same version of the FOXP2 gene as modern humans, a gene critical for language development. This suggests that the genetic foundation for complex language existed in our evolutionary lineage at least 500,000 years ago. Even more surprisingly, genetic analysis of Denisovans, another archaic human species that diverged from our lineage around 700,000 years ago, has identified genes related to brain development that may have conferred cognitive advantages. Some of these genes persist in modern human populations. These genetic findings challenge the notion that modern human cognition emerged recently. They suggest that the neural architecture for complex thought and language was present in the human lineage long before the supposed cognitive revolution 50,000 years ago. Meanwhile, microscopic analysis of ancient stone tools has revealed evidence of sophisticated manufacturing techniques requiring abstract planning, precise motor control, and possibly language to teach these skills to others. Some of these techniques date to 500,000 years ago or earlier. Wear pattern analysis on stone tools from sites across Africa, Europe, and Asia suggests they were used for complex multi-step processes, including woodworking, hide preparation, and plant processing. These activities required not just technical skill, but conceptual understanding of material properties and transformation processes. Advanced imaging techniques applied to fossil skulls have allowed scientists to create endocasts, models of brain size and structure, revealing that early Homo sapiens possessed essentially modern brain configurations by at least 300,000 years ago. The hardware for advanced cognition was present long before the supposed cognitive revolution. Computer simulations of population dynamics have demonstrated that demographic factors, population size, density, and interconnectedness, dramatically affect cultural transmission and innovation rates independent of cognitive capabilities. Small, isolated groups struggle to maintain complex cultural knowledge, regardless of individual intelligence. These simulations suggest that early human populations, which were generally small and fragmented, would have faced significant challenges in maintaining complex cultural knowledge, even if individuals possessed fully modern cognitive capabilities. This helps explain the apparent delay in cultural acceleration, despite early cognitive potential. Climate reconstruction using ice cores, ocean sediments, and other proxy records has revealed that our ancestors faced extreme environmental instability throughout the Pleistocene epoch. Rapid climate fluctuations would have disrupted populations, forced migrations, and potentially led to knowledge loss. During the past 300,000 years, humans experienced multiple glacial cycles, abrupt warming and cooling events, and periods of extreme aridity that transformed entire landscapes. These environmental pressures would have repeatedly disrupted cultural transmission systems, potentially erasing accumulated knowledge. If you've been following closely, I'd love to know which of these scientific approaches you find most compelling for understanding ancient cognition. Is it genetics, archaeology, climate science, or something else? Each field offers a unique window into this fascinating mystery. The integration of these multiple scientific approaches has created a new paradigm for understanding early human cognition, one that resolves many apparent paradoxes in the archaeological record. This emerging synthesis suggests that cognitive capability and cultural complexity follow different trajectories. The paradox of early sophisticated behavior, followed by apparent simplification, becomes comprehensible when viewed through this multidisciplinary lens. Early humans possessed the cognitive capability for complex thought and symbolic representation, but demographic and environmental factors affected knowledge preservation and cumulative culture. This creates an apparent contradiction: archaeological sites showing sophisticated behavior alternating with periods of apparent technological regression. This pattern makes little sense if we assume steady cognitive evolution, but becomes entirely comprehensible if we recognize the vulnerability of knowledge transmission systems. Another paradox involves the uneven distribution of symbolic behavior in the archaeological record. If cognitive capabilities were uniform across early human populations, why does symbolic expression appear sporadically rather than universally? The answer likely involves both preservation bias and the fact that symbolic expression requires not just cognitive capability, but specific cultural contexts and needs. Modern human groups vary enormously in their material expression of symbolic thinking. We should expect similar variation in prehistoric populations. Perhaps the most significant paradox concerns language. A capability that leaves no direct archaeological trace yet was almost certainly central to human cognitive evolution. How can we determine when complex language emerged if it leaves no material evidence? The indirect evidence is compelling. Complex tool-making traditions require language for effective transmission. Social coordination for big game hunting suggests sophisticated communication. Trade networks spanning hundreds of kilometers imply linguistic exchange. These behaviors appear in the archaeological record long before the supposed cognitive revolution. Computational modeling suggests that even proto-languages with limited vocabulary and grammar could have enabled significant knowledge transmission. Such systems could have supported complex social coordination, technological instruction, and ecological knowledge preservation. Recent studies of modern hunter-gatherer knowledge systems reveal sophisticated information encoding through story, song, and ritual, methods that enable precise transmission of complex information without writing. Similar methods likely operated in prehistoric knowledge systems. Analysis of indigenous Australian songlines demonstrates that they encode navigational information, resource locations, and ecological knowledge with remarkable precision. This information has been preserved accurately for thousands of years through purely oral transmission. Similar studies of Polynesian navigational knowledge, Native American ecological management systems, and African traditional pharmacology reveal sophisticated information preservation through non-written means. These systems suggest models for how prehistoric knowledge transmission might have operated. The emerging scientific synthesis suggests that early humans possessed essentially modern cognitive capabilities from at least 200,000 to 300,000 years ago, but faced significant challenges in knowledge preservation and cumulative culture due to demographic and environmental factors. This explains both the evidence for early sophistication and the apparent delay in cultural acceleration. As population sizes increased, networks expanded, and more stable knowledge transmission systems developed, the conditions for sustained cultural accumulation improved. The apparent cognitive revolution around 50,000 years ago likely represents not new cognitive capabilities, but new conditions for knowledge preservation and transmission. This emerging paradigm resolves the central paradox that has long troubled paleoanthropology. The gap between anatomically modern humans appearing around 300,000 years ago and behaviorally modern humans supposedly emerging only 50,000 years ago. The new synthesis suggests there was no such gap in cognitive potential, only in its expression and preservation. The forbidden knowledge of early humans thus becomes not a matter of cognitive limitation, but of knowledge fragility. Early humans could think, communicate and understand in ways essentially similar to modern humans, but their knowledge remained vulnerable to disruption and loss. This perspective transforms our understanding of human cognitive evolution from a story of steady progress to a more complex narrative of capability and constraint, potential and limitation. It suggests that the fundamental qualities of human consciousness have remained relatively stable for hundreds of thousands of years. What has changed dramatically is not our cognitive architecture, but our knowledge preservation systems. From oral tradition to writing, from isolated communities to interconnected networks, from fragile transmission to robust storage. These changes have allowed knowledge to accumulate in ways previously impossible. As we prepare to integrate these scientific insights into a comprehensive understanding of early human cognition, we approach the central revelation promised at the outset of our exploration. A revelation that challenges conventional narratives and offers a new perspective on what it means to be human. Chapter 10, Reclaiming Our Cognitive Heritage. The evidence we've examined leads to a profound revelation. Human beings have possessed essentially modern cognitive capabilities for at least 250,000 years, and possibly much longer. The gap between anatomically modern humans and behaviorally modern humans is largely illusory, an artifact of preservation bias and our own limited perspective. Our ancestors were not cognitively primitive beings, slowly evolving toward modern intelligence. They were fully human minds, operating within different cultural frameworks and knowledge preservation systems, facing environmental and demographic challenges that shaped the expression of their cognitive potential. This revelation fundamentally transforms our understanding of human cognitive evolution. It suggests that the capacity for abstract thought, symbolic representation, language, and complex knowledge systems is not a recent development, but a defining feature of humanity stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. The apparent cognitive revolution, around 50,000 years ago, likely represents not a neurological transformation, but a demographic and cultural threshold. As population densities increased and networks expanded, knowledge preservation became more robust, allowing cumulative cultural evolution to accelerate. This perspective resolves the central paradox that has troubled paleoanthropology. The gap between the appearance of anatomically modern humans around 300,000 years ago and the supposed emergence of behaviorally modern humans much later. There was no such gap in cognitive potential, only in its expression and preservation. The forbidden knowledge of early humans was not forbidden due to cognitive limitations, but vulnerable due to transmission challenges. Early humans could think, communicate, and understand in ways essentially similar to modern humans, but their knowledge remained susceptible to disruption and loss. This vulnerability created the pattern we've observed throughout our exploration: cycles of knowledge emergence and disappearance, sophisticated understanding repeatedly developed and lost across millennia. Only in relatively recent prehistory did knowledge preservation systems become robust enough to sustain continuous accumulation. The real transformation in human history wasn't cognitive but technological and social. The development of increasingly stable methods for preserving and transmitting knowledge across generations. From oral tradition to writing, from isolated communities to interconnected networks, these systems allowed knowledge to accumulate. This revelation carries profound implications for how we understand ourselves as a species. It suggests that modern humans don't represent the culmination of a long cognitive evolution, but rather the current carriers of an ancient cognitive heritage, stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. Throughout our deep history, our ancestors weren't just surviving, but observing, analyzing, theorizing, communicating, and preserving knowledge. They were engaging with their world through essentially the same cognitive processes we use today, filtered through different cultural frameworks and knowledge systems. I've been wondering, does this perspective change how you think about ancient humans? Does knowing they likely thought much as we do create a stronger connection to our deep past? Our understanding of our ancestors shapes how we understand ourselves. They watch the same stars we do, experience the same emotions, ask similar existential questions. The differences between us and them lie not in cognitive architecture, but in accumulated knowledge, technological infrastructure, and cultural frameworks. This perspective challenges the narrative of steady upward progress that underlies much of modern thought. It suggests that human history may be characterized not by continuous advancement, but by cycles of discovery and loss, remembering and forgetting. And, perhaps most significantly, it suggests that sophisticated consciousness isn't a recent development, but a deep feature of human existence. The capacity for self-reflection, abstract thought, symbolic communication, and meaning-making has characterized humanity for hundreds of thousands of years. This recognition carries ethical implications for how we view indigenous knowledge systems today. If sophisticated knowledge preservation existed in pre-literate societies of the deep past, perhaps we should reconsider the value of non-written knowledge traditions that survive in various cultures. It also challenges technological determinism, the notion that technological advancement necessarily represents progress. Early humans developed profound understanding of celestial cycles, plant properties, ecological relationships, and other complex systems with minimal technology. This suggests that some types of knowledge may flourish best with minimal technological mediation, through direct observation, experiential learning, and embodied practice rather than instrumental measurement. Different knowledge systems may excel at capturing different aspects of reality. The revelation of early human cognitive sophistication transforms our understanding not just of the past, but of human potential itself. If early humans possessed these capabilities despite technological limitations, perhaps modern humans possess cognitive potential beyond what our current frameworks recognize or encourage. This perspective invites us to reconsider the relationship between technology and cognition in our own lives. Does our technology always enhance understanding, or might it sometimes create distance between observer and observed? Do our knowledge systems capture all forms of understanding, or do they privilege certain types of knowing over others? As we integrate this revelation into our understanding of human history and potential, we're invited to reconsider not just who our ancestors were, but who we are and who we might become. The story of human cognition becomes not one of recent awakening, but of ancient capacity and future possibility. The true forbidden knowledge of early humans may be not what they knew, but how they knew. Approaches to understanding reality that our modern frameworks have forgotten or marginalized. Recovering this cognitive heritage may prove crucial for addressing the complex challenges of our present moment. As we conclude our exploration, we're left not with final answers, but with a transformed perspective, one that recognizes the depth of our cognitive heritage and the breadth of human potential. A perspective that sees human history not as a steady march of progress, but as a complex tapestry of remembering and forgetting across the vast expanse of deep time. We aren't newly awakened beings, but the inheritors of an ancient cognitive tradition, one that has repeatedly flowered and faded throughout our deep history. Recognizing this heritage doesn't diminish our achievements, but places them within a larger context of human possibility, stretching back 250,000 years and beyond. As our journey through deep time concludes, we find ourselves standing before a mirror, not of glass and silver, but of stone and bone, ochre and ash. A mirror that reflects not just our present moment, but the full depth of human cognitive experience stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. In this ancient mirror, we recognize ourselves. The hands that carefully knapped stone tools 250,000 years ago possess the same precision and purpose as those that build quantum computers today. The minds that tracked celestial movements without telescopes engaged the same pattern recognition capabilities we use to map the genome. The difference lies not in cognitive architecture, but in accumulated knowledge and technological infrastructure. Our ancestors possessed the same fundamental cognitive capabilities we do, the capacity for abstract thought, symbolic representation, language and meaning-making that defines the human experience. This recognition doesn't diminish the achievements of modern civilization, but places them within a larger context. We aren't the first humans to think symbolically, to preserve knowledge across generations, to contemplate our place in the cosmos. We're the current carriers of an ancient cognitive heritage. Perhaps the most profound implication of our journey is that human consciousness itself, the capacity for self-reflection, abstract thought, and symbolic meaning-making, is not a recent development, but a deep feature of humanity, stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. We've always been meaning-makers, pattern-seekers, storytellers. As we face unprecedented challenges in our present moment, this ancient mirror offers both perspective and possibility. Our cognitive heritage includes not just what our ancestors knew, but how they knew. Approaches to understanding reality that our modern frameworks may have forgotten or marginalized. Recovering this full cognitive heritage, integrating multiple ways of knowing, recognizing the value of different knowledge systems, acknowledging both the power and limitations of our technological frameworks, may prove crucial for navigating the complex challenges ahead. The wisdom we need might be found not just in innovation, but in remembrance. If you valued this exploration of our deep cognitive heritage, consider subscribing to our channel. Each journey we take together reveals another facet of the human story, the grand, complex, mysterious narrative that connects us across time and space to our earliest ancestors, who gazed at the same stars and asked the same essential questions we still ponder today.